A few weeks ago, I did a video about how Asha Sharma has reset Xbox and all of the amazing things that she's been doing in her first 100 days as the new Xbox CEO. Well, we just started the second 100 days and heads at Xbox are starting to roll. Let's back up just a bit and see what the hell is going on at Xbox. Microsoft poured $20 billion into Xbox for the last 5 years, only to watch annual revenue drop by $500 million. That math eventually reached Satya Nadella's desk, Microsoft CEO, and results are seemingly devastating. See, just 8 days ago from when I'm recording this, Microsoft showed you the future of Xbox. It was at their game showcase, which I thought was the best one they've done in a decade. They gave us Gears of War E-Day, gave us a brand new Hellblade, Senua, promised that Game Pass was back on top. So many other great games. Again, for me, it was the best showcase in a decade. Just over a week later, Microsoft has closed Ninja Theory, the studio that built Hellblade. You don't close down an award-winning developer a week after using them to showcase one of the next big titles coming for your console unless something is crumbling with the foundation. Between a massive spike in hardware costs and stagnant growth, we are watching the total liquidation of the prestige studio model Phil Spencer spent 10 years building. So to understand why this is happening, you need to sit with one number for a second. It's the one I opened. Microsoft has spent over $20 billion on Xbox. Content, platform, hardware subsidies, all of it. And in that same window, the annual revenue drops by nearly $500 million. Not even flat, not even just even. We spent 20 billion, now we're even. They're down. You poured 20 billion in, and the return goes the wrong direction. At some point, those numbers are not going to survive a boardroom meeting. The accountability margin Xbox is ending this fiscal year with sits around 3%. And that wouldn't be a crisis number in every industry. But for a division of Microsoft, it's kind of a figure that's going to trigger a very different conversation about what the business is actually for. And Satya Nadella said it publicly. They've been subsidizing entertainment. Those were his exact words. And then he added something that should have made every Xbox fan stop and listen again. He said there's more monetization of Xbox games happening on YouTube than at Microsoft. And think about what that means. Content creators are making more money off Xbox games than the company that makes them. That is just a structural problem. But the financial stagnation is almost the secondary story here because the hardware component crisis is what turned a slow burn into something super urgent. You see, when Asha Sharma joined Xbox as CEO in February, storage component costs were already more than double what they were the previous fall. But since then, since she joined as CEO, they've doubled again. And as Microsoft plans for the 2027 holiday season, they're projecting costs to land at over 5 times what they paid for those components compared to just 2 years ago. And memory costs are tracking in the same direction. The whole industry is dealing with component price pressure right now, but the Xbox Wire memo that leaked recently was specific. Microsoft believes they've been hit harder than most of their competitors because of the decisions made over the last several years. So you've got a situation where they can't manufacture consoles fast enough to meet demand, but even if they could, selling those consoles at a price anyone would actually pay means losing money on every single unit. And this is not anything new. Nintendo and Sony have both sold hardware at a loss before, but it only works if your software and services revenue can cover the gap and then some. And for Xbox right now, that's just not what the numbers show. So this is the real reason for that reset memo from Sharma and Matt Booty and why it hit so hard internally. They weren't trying to soften bad news ahead of a press cycle, which is what we see sometimes. Instead, they were telling their own employees internally that the model Xbox has been running on, which is spend big, build a content library, grow Game Pass, and subsidize hardware to put boxes in living rooms, it's broken and it doesn't work. Or, to quote the memo directly, the current path cannot continue. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because once you accept that the hardware economics are just no good and the revenue trajectory is going in the wrong direction, these studio cuts reveal themselves to be triage. Microsoft is deciding right now which parts of Xbox are worth saving in the new version of this company, and the answer they're landing on is not the one Phil Spencer spent a decade selling us on. So let's talk about who's actually getting cut, because the pattern here is not random. Craig Duncan stepped down as head of Xbox Game Studios this week. He'd been in the role for about 18 months, having replaced Alan Hartman in late 2024. That's 3 different people running Xbox Game Studios in roughly 2 years. Lewis O'Connor, the chief of staff, is gone too. And when leadership turnover happens that fast, it usually means one of 2 things is happening. Either the people kept failing, or the strategy kept changing underneath them and nobody can execute on the moving target. Based on everything in that memo, it's the second one. And Ninja Theory is closed. Full stop. The studio behind Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, and Hellblade 2, a team that won a Peabody Award with Compulsion's South of Midnight, built one of the most artistically respected franchises in Xbox history, told employees earlier today that it's over. Now, staffers are reportedly hoping that a buyer steps in, and maybe one does, but as of right now, the studio Microsoft used to point to when they wanted to prove they cared about serious artistic game making is gone. And the wild part again is that they announced a brand new game in that franchise last week, Senua, at the showcase. And whatever that game becomes now, because I'm not sure what will happen with it, Compulsion Games and Double Fine are both in active negotiations to spin off. Again, Compulsion just shipped South of Midnight, which landed on PS5 less than 3 months ago. Double Fine is Tim Schafer's studio, one of the most beloved developers in the entire industry. And again, Microsoft isn't closing these things down because they're broken. They're doing it because they just don't fit in the math anymore. Or maybe they never did. And that's the pattern that connects all of this. Microsoft is holding on to Halo, Gears, Forza, Minecraft, and the full Activision Blizzard catalog. Franchises with proven commercial scale and built-in audiences that spend money. The prestige studios, the ones that Phil Spencer acquired specifically to fund weird, creative, risky games that made Game Pass feel like something more than a bargain bin, those are the ones being let go. The art house Xbox era, where they greenlight something like Hellblade or Pentiment or South of Midnight just because they were interesting, that era is over. Now, the optimist take is spinning off isn't shutting down. Some of these teams may find buyers, keep their people, and maybe even keep their games. That's possible. But here's what actually walks out the door with them: the creative credibility Microsoft spent a decade building. The reason people respected Xbox's first-party ambitions, even when the commercial results were mixed, was because of studios like these. Strip those out and what you're left with is a leaner, more commercially focused publisher. One that looks a lot more like Electronic Arts or Activision did before the merger than the Xbox Phil Spencer described when he was buying up half the industry. The June 30th fiscal year is approaching quickly, decisions are being made fast, layoffs are probably landing before that date, and the Xbox that wakes up on July 1st is going to be a structurally different company than the one that held its showcase just 8 days ago. Xbox seemingly is a Microsoft line item now. Satya Nadella is moving on from subsidizing entertainment to focusing strictly on margins. This reset converts a passion project into a profit center, and prestige studios like Ninja Theory were the first casualties. The question now is what remains. Which studio do you think is actually safe? Hit me in the comments with your thoughts on what is going on with Xbox. We thought we were seeing lots of positive forward momentum culminating at the game showcase, and a week later we're seeing more negative come through. Thanks for watching as always, guys. I appreciate your support. I'm Andrew Edwards, and I will catch you in the next video.